She's just a name left behind on old paperwork.
She's just a name left behind on old paperwork. My father said those words in probate court like I was a ghost. My stepmother nodded along. The lawyer shuffled his papers. Then the judge leaned forward and asked one question that made my father's face turn white as bone. I was 11 years old, the day my mother was buried in a military cemetery with full honors. I remember the folded flag, the rifle salute, the way the November wind cut through my coat like a blade. I remember my father standing beside me, not holding my hand, not looking at me, already glancing sideways at the woman who would become my stepmother before my mother's grave had even settled. Her name was Diane. She wore black that day, but her nails were freshly painted red. I never forgot that detail. My name is Alyssa Healy. My mother was Colonel Margaret Healy, United States Army, 2 tour in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, decorated 3 times for valor under fire, and killed not by enemy combat, but by a drunk contractor on a highway outside Fort Bragg on a Tuesday afternoon in October. She died doing nothing heroic. That was the cruelest part. She died buying groceries. My father remarried 14 months later. Diane moved in with her perfume and her opinions, and her 2 sons, who immediately claimed the bedroom my mother had painted pale blue for me. I was sent to live with my maternal grandmother in Virginia. My father called it a practical arrangement. Diane called it giving Alyssa space to grieve. My grandmother called it what it was, abandonment dressed in polite language. But my grandmother, Eleanor Healy, was not a woman who raised weak daughters, and she was not about to raise a weak granddaughter. She enrolled me in every program my mother had ever wanted for me. ROTC at 16, pre-law at 18, military intelligence at 22. By the time I was 28, I held a federal security clearance 3 levels above what most people in Washington ever see. I had also, quietly, spent 6 years building a legal case. Not out of bitterness, out of precision. My mother had left a will. A detailed, legally notarized will that named me, Alyssa Margaret Healy, as the sole beneficiary of her estate, her military pension survivor benefits, her property in Asheville, and a trust she had established in 2003 that had, over 2 decades, grown quietly and significantly. My father had never mentioned this will. Neither had his lawyer. Neither had Diane. What they had done, and I had the documents to prove every single step, was file a competing petition, claim my mother had died intestate, and over the course of several years, absorb everything she had ever owned into a joint estate that conveniently belonged to my father, and by extension, his new family. They had done it slowly, carefully, in pieces small enough that no single action looked criminal. But I had not been sitting quietly in Virginia doing nothing. I had been watching, learning, waiting for the right moment. That moment came on a cold Thursday morning in a wood-paneled probate courtroom in North Carolina. I sat on the petitioner's side alone. No entourage, no dramatic entrance. I wore a navy suit, the same cut my mother used to wear to base hearings, and I set a single manila folder on the table in front of me. My father arrived with Diane and a lawyer named Gerald Marsh, who charged $400 an hour, and had the handshake of a man who had never lost a case he expected to lose. He had not expected to lose today. My father saw me, and for a fraction of a second, something moved across his face. Not guilt, not sorrow, something closer to calculation, a rapid internal reassessment of variables. Then he smoothed his tie and sat down. The judge was the Honorable Patricia Voss, 61 years old, former JAG officer, 2 decades on the bench. I had not requested her specifically, but when I saw her name on the case assignment, I understood that some things in life arrange themselves with a kind of elegant justice. She knew military estate, law the way a surgeon knows anatomy. Gerald Marsh opened with confidence. My mother's will, he argued, had never been properly executed. There were questions about witnessing, questions about capacity, questions about whether the document on record was even authentic. He used phrases like administrative irregularity and clerical inconsistency with the smooth fluency of a man who had rehearsed them carefully. Then he said it. He gestured toward me, not even fully, just a half-dismissive wave of his hand, and said that the petitioner appeared to be relying on a sentimental attachment to paperwork rather than legal standing. "She's just a name left behind on old documents," he said, "a clerical artifact from a prior estate arrangement." My father nodded. Diane folded her hands. I stayed silent. I had learned that from my mother. She used to say, "The soldier who fires first in a negotiation has already lost. Wait, let them exhaust themselves, then move." Judge Voss looked at me. I gave the smallest nod. She turned to Gerald Marsh. "Counselor," she said, in a voice that carried the particular quiet authority of someone who does not need volume to command a room. "Before we proceed with your characterization of the petitioner, do you truly not know who she is?" Gerald Marsh blinked. "I'm sorry." "Alyssa Healy." Judge Voss set down her pen. "Do you know what she does, counselor?" The silence in that courtroom lasted approximately 4 seconds. I counted them. Gerald Marsh opened his mouth, closed it. My father's face turned pale. What Gerald Marsh did not know, what my father and Diane had apparently never thought to investigate, was that 18 months prior, my work had been part of a federal task force that had quietly dismantled a military contractor fraud network operating across 4 states. The case had been sealed. My name had been redacted from public filings. But Judge Patricia Voss had been one of the 3 federal judges who reviewed the evidence before the indictments were issued. She had seen my full name, my clearance level, and my role in the investigation. She had also, in the sealed record, seen something else. The name of one of the shell companies implicated in the contractor fraud network. The name on the incorporation papers. Gerald A. Marsh, registered agent. He had not been indicted. He had been a peripheral figure, someone who had signed documents without fully understanding what he was signing, or so his attorney had argued successfully at the time. But he knew what his name on those documents meant. And now he understood, in a single crystallizing moment, that the woman sitting across the courtroom from him had been in that room, had seen those files, knew exactly how close he had come. He did not say another word for 11 minutes. Judge Voss did not need 11 minutes. She looked at the authentication records I had submitted, the original will, preserved by my grandmother in a fireproof safe for 22 years, the notary's seal, the 2 military witnesses, both of whom had submitted sworn affidavits, the chain of custody documentation my mother, meticulous, brilliant, thorough to the last, had arranged with the precision of a woman who understood that the world does not always protect what is right unless you build the protection yourself. Then she looked at the competing petition my father had filed, the one that claimed my mother had died intestate, the one that had been constructed on the quiet erasure of a document that had existed all along. She set it down. "The petition," she said, "is denied. The original will of Colonel Margaret Healy is recognized as valid, binding, and controlling. All assets, benefits, and properties designated therein are to be transferred to the named beneficiary." She looked at me. "Ms. Healy." That was all. My father tried to speak to me in the corridor afterward. I stopped walking. I turned around. I looked at him the way my mother used to look at men who underestimated her, not with anger, not with triumph, just with a kind of clear, level steadiness that said, "I see you completely, and I feel nothing you were hoping I would feel." "Alyssa," he started. "My mother taught me something," I said. "She said that people who erase you don't do it because you're insignificant. They do it because you're exactly the opposite." I picked up my folder. "I'll have the transfer documents to your attorney by Friday." I walked out into the cold November air. The same kind of cold as the day we buried her. But this time, I was not an 11-year-old girl with no hand to hold. I was my mother's daughter, fully, finally, and on the record. And some names, it turns out, are not so easy to leave behind on old paperwork. If this story moved you, share it with someone who knows that patience, preparation, and quiet strength are the most powerful weapons a person can carry. Drop a red if Alyssa deserved every single second of that moment. Comment Colonel's daughter if you'd read the full novel.